Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here, and I am from the likes of the Merxy Toys videos. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'll present to you our next new Let's Play for the channel, and this time we are going back into the Game Boy Advance once again after the events of WarioWare Twisted that Sonic already did tackle through, but here we are on the forms of, let's just say, a bit of a mashup between Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie type of game, well, technically speaking, and that's what appears to be Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance. I think this game first came out in 2003, which, gee, until when it gets to the point until 2023, this game will become 2 decades old during that time, which, that's kind of scary, kind of think about it though. But anyway, as you can tell from the actual screen capture, much like the forms of several other Game Boy Advance games, I'm going to be playing this on the emulator, because it's a shame that this game never saw the light of day on the Wii U Virtual Console re-release, because I was expecting that will be the case, but apparently it doesn't. So, anyways, let's begin Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. 2 months have passed since Gruntilda the Witch was defeated by Banjo and Kazooie. After falling from her tower, Gruntilda was buried underground, where she remains waiting for her sisters to rescue her until this very day. The beginning portion does remind me of Banjo-Tooie for a bit. Hey Kazooie, I'll clean the barbecue while you clear things up in the house. Meanwhile, I wonder what Klongo's up to. Klongo, not Shift Rock. Mrs. Gruntilda, not get out. Maybe Klongo make something to help Grunty. Gee, what are you gonna be planning for this time? What's going on here? Mumbo, wait behind bush and see. Yeah, this beginning portion does remind me of Banjo-Tooie for a bit, except it's now in a Game Boy Advance, so... And also, different plans, I suppose? Mrs. can escape if she use magic spell to get Ghost out from under rock and into Mecha Grunty. I have no idea how she pulled this off. With the Mecha Grunty Klongo's made, Banjo's favor will be repaid. I'll steal Kazooie, and in a blast, I'll use my suit to change the past. Without his bird, Banjo's lost. I won't give up at any cost. Wait a second. Back at Banjo's house. Banjo, need get Kazooie. Quick, Grunty back. Looking to kidnap favorite friend of Bear for evil plan. To change history. Too late. Here, Hing comes. Oh no, this isn't good. Now I have your feathered friend. On my sisters, I won't repaid. With this duo split into 2, or in 2 rather, there's nothing that I cannot do. Hold tight, Kazooie. We'll move quite fast to travel back into the past. Oh no! We can't let Grunty get away. With this, we've got to get Kazooie back before something awful happens. Mumbo used strong magic, sent Banjo back to same time as Grunty. Banjo tried to find ancestors of Mole and handsome young witch doctor. They'll help Bear get Bird back. Hope magic not have too many side effects. So basically, we are traveling back in time in the past, apparently. I see how this is going. And somehow we warped into Spiral Mountain. Wow, that was some light show. Sure hope Grunty didn't spot you. Sorry to frighten you, Mr. Mole, sir. I'm feeling a little dizzy. I wonder, could you show me the way to Grunty's castle? Grunty's castle? Still been built. You must be Banjo. A letter about you appeared in a flash, like you just did. Came from some Jumbala fella. Mumbo Jumbo? No, it's true, I tell you. Poof. And there it was. It said you'd need some help to remember a few moves you'd forgotten from your trip. By the way, you can call me Bullseye. You'll need to learn the pack whack first. I've left my lessons at the next molehill just north of here. Press A to come here, and then one more thing, be sure to bring 10 musical notes with you. And then I'm doing this for you. So yeah, basically, Bonsai is like the equivalent to bottles from the likes of how it does in Banjo-Kazooie, especially noticeable with the forms of jam jars from Banjo-Tooie. So yeah, here's the forms of Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance. As you can tell, since we're on the Game Boy Advance, and because of this time, we can still able to actually walk around for a bit, just like the forms of how it does it on the previous two games, except the fact that the perspective-wise is actually a little bit more different this time. Although before I get into more details about that, here's our first Jinjo that we actually got. So, basically, Jinjo behaves exactly like the forms of how it does it on, not only Banjo-Kazooie, but also Banjo-Tooie as well. That basically, if you do manage able to collect quite a few of those Jinjos, then you would able to actually get yourselves a big reward, such as for instance we able to come across into Jiggies once again. So, except the biggest difference since this time is the fact that unlike in the first game, there are about 100 of them, and then in Banjo-Tooie they only have like 90 of them, whilst in here this time around though, it's basically a shorter amount. So, yeah, but even then we'll discuss more details about that as soon as we get into the forms of the continuation of this playthrough. So, yeah, anyway, and after a while though, that we actually did manage to talk to Bonsai, so that way we can able to actually just like tell him what the actual movesets are, such as for instance we can now able to actually use the pack whack, so that way we can able to destroy things, like these little things right here. So that way, that will be the only primary attack from now on, because from the get-go though, unlike the ones how it does it in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, normally we were supposed to be able to have ourselves Kazooie with us, but in this game in particular though, since that Kazooie has been kidnapped, or bird-napped, as the forms of how it does it from the evil clutches of Grunty with a mecha form, and as a result though, we don't think we can probably able to meet up with Kazooie until later on throughout the game. So yeah, that might as well able to explain for this much. So Although, kind of thing about it though, is the fact that this game is like a combination of the original Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, because either way though, as you can tell, that in order able to go from one world to the other, that is the fact that, like I said, you still need able to collect some Jiggies in the game, and also we actually picked up the forms of the honeycomb piece, and basically though, this allows you to able to actually just get some more health pickups, or to be more specifically, extend your health bar if you manage to meet up with that familiar character from the likes of in Banjo-Tooie. And also that the music notes are usually behaves exactly like the forms of how it does in the original Banjo-Kazooie game, so as a result though, that the collectibles wise, it might actually feel exactly like the original game, so there's no, although there were a few occasions where basically you will come across into a certain multi-pack of, you know, music notes in general, so at least they might be still present there. So as a result, though, there's not much else to explain about this, and as far as I'm aware, that this particular playthrough, as far as this is concerned, yes, of course, much like Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, this is our... Excuse me, I do apologize for that belchiness, but by the way, because usually, relatively speaking, I just drink lots, by the way, so, because, you know, the weather itself is getting ridiculously hot even every now and then. So anyway, because as a result though, yeah, I'll be doing a 100% completion of this playthrough, meaning about the fact that we need to collect all those musical notes, in addition to all these Jiggies, and on top of all that stuff though, grabbing all the Jinjos, and even some collectibles every once in a while, so... Yeah, you probably expected by this point. And also, that we actually stumbled across the forms of those honeycombs, which there are 4 different types of these things this time around. There is the single one, which actually gives you the forms of, let's just say, just 1 health, and then there's also the newest one in the lineup, which appears to be body forms of the 2 honeycomb, and basically that actually gives you a double amount of health, like you can able to get 2 health back. And on top of all that stuff though, the exclamation mark honeycomb, and finally the, let's just say the question mark honeycomb, and basically that allows you to able to do a bit of a timing press in order to able to actually just do guarantees you to able to get some bit of your health back, at least depending on what specific honeycomb you get. So, just like the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Tooie. And speaking of Banjo-Tooie, here's the forms of Jiggy Wiggy again. So yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, since Banjo-Tooie. Mind you, that this game takes place after the events of Banjo-Kazooie was ended, and maybe before Banjo-Tooie, according to the actual timeline. So, kind of felt weird to able to actually get the timeline like this, even though, mind you, we actually stumbled across the forms of some of those familiar characters based off from Banjo-Tooie. Well, mind you, because of how the fact that Banjo-Tooie came out in 2000, and then this game came out in 2003, so it's like 3 years after when Banjo-Tooie was released. But in terms of timeline, that this game takes place in between, you know, Banjo-Kazooie and before Banjo-Tooie, so it's why I classified that from the start. So yeah, you get the idea. So it looks like that Jiggy Wiggy is going to tell us that the first world we need to able to actually access to is Cliff Farm. So, interesting first world, I say. Although especially noticeable about the fact that this was the beginning of the game, of course. So, now of course, just like in the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, Jiggies is the actual ultimate goal of this game, except that unlike in Banjo-Tooie, that normally we're supposed to able to do a Jiggy Wiggy's challenge in order to able to progress for the world. In here, all you have to do is just basically you get out able to stand onto this altar, and then press the A button depending on how much Jiggies you've got, and then basically that actually unlocks certain worlds. So, at the moment there's only 1 world we can able to actually go into at this moment, which is of course, you know exactly what this world is going to be, and that's what it appears to be, as soon as we're able to get into this cave. Here we are, in the first world in the game, Cliff Farm. And of course, technically there's also another world that we've already managed to able to explore around, which appears to be Spiral Mountain, which, kind of think about it though, the difference is this time around, than the forms of how it does it on Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, that usually Spiral Mountain for those 2 games are usually it's like a small world, or technically speaking a tutorial world. Whilst in the forms of this game this time around though, the Spiral Mountain is actually like a full-length world, like filled to the brim with all these collectibles and all the other jazz. So yeah, it feels like a combination of the forms of Grunty's lair from the first game, as well as the forms of Isle of Heeks from the likes of Banjo-Tooie. except the biggest difference is this time is that the perspective is actually a little bit different this time. Sense about the fact that it's almost like an isometric view, so as a result though, think of like playing the Game Boy Advance Spyro games, except the fact that we're gonna be able to... Oh, and also the Rayman game on the Game Boy Advance, which appears to be like, I want to say like a sequel to Rayman 3 on the console games or something. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly purchased that much of Game Boy Advance these days for its games department. Well, because I already got loads and loads and loads of Game Boy Advance games on my spare time. So because of this though, and as you can see, we can now able to actually just learn how to use the underwater technique. And it's a bit weird able to use in this game is the fact that normally you can able to actually just dive into any water in the previous games. In here though, if you stumble across these little bubbles, that actually tells you that you're supposed to able to dive into the actual underwater. So, and of course, just like before, there's an air meter we need to watch out for. So in this case though, it's the fact that it might actually feel kind of similar to you, doesn't it? Except, well, obviously this is in a different perspective, rather than on the forms of a, well, the 3D open world environments and stuff like that, but it knows what it is. So, and now we can able to actually learn how to climb. So, and of course, just like in forms of how it does it on, well, let's just say, kind of like a combination of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Now, the reason why I say that is because, well, in order to able to learn more moves, is that just like in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, that if you manage to able to talk to either bottles from the first game, and especially noticeable with gem jars from the second game, that basically you would able to learn more moves. However, the Banjo-Tooie's case is the fact that you have to collect a certain amount of those music notes in order to able to actually learn more moves. Whilst in the forms of this game in particular, it's kind of the same thing, except you're able to take, well, you need to talk to the forms of a different character, which is Bullseye, so that's something you need to classify that, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, like I said, it feels like kind of similar to the previous two games, except on a different perspective, and on top of all that stuff that was on the Game Boy Advance, so... Anyways, let's grab another Jiggy. Now, of course, just like in the previous games, in each and every single world does manage to retain not only 100 of those music notes, but also 10 Jiggies in total. So, I don't think there's any that much backtracking in this game, apart from one in particular world, which we'll point it out whenever we're able to get into the later portion of this game. So, anyways, though, so let's go ahead and do this next objective, which basically that what this particular chicken mother was actually trying to say to us is that we need to go in here, and then basically in these kinds of portions like these, we need to rescue the forms of those cheeks, or maybe just collect those blue eggs and stuff like that. There's nothing we can do with those blue eggs in this in the beginning portion of the game yet, because obviously since that we still don't have Kazooie with us. So as a result though, that can wait until for a bit longer. So anyway, so now we've actually received 12 of those eggs for the chicken, and that way we're able to get ourselves, what else? The actual Jiggy itself. It sounds kind of weird in this game though, because at first I thought I'm used to with the forms of the N64 duology games for some reason, when it goes like do 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 do. But in this particular version, in this particular Jiggy appears jingle is the fact that it just cuts off a bit short and also sounds a bit weird. Again, it's mainly because of the forms of the handheld's limitations, or maybe it's because this is on a Game Boy Advance or something. So anyway, so let's go ahead and continue for this point while trying to go for those little staircase filled to the brim with all these haystacks. So at the very least, there might be something worth noting for if we're able to keep on exploring around in this place. So, oh yeah, something's worth mentioning for this point today, and that is the fact that today's day is of course the 12th of July today, in this case in 2022 today. I know for the fact that Ray the Flying Squirrel he still carry on doing the forms of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated Let's Play so far, and I think he's pretty much almost towards the end of that particular game so far, well apart from the fact that he needs to able to do with the forms of a lot of grinding for the last few golden spatulas he needs to collect. So speaking of such though, is the fact that I love the fact that during the course of the summer so far, we actually did manage to do quite a lot of Let's Plays based off from collectathons, which I will say, collectathons is probably my favorite type of video games like this, especially noticeable about the fact that you can able to explore around on this open world environments and all that stuff though, which even then though, I know for the fact that recently that Maxi has already finished up with the forms of the Super Mario Sunshine on the Super Mario 3D All-Stars game so far. So in this case, he's now moved on to the final game of that particular compilation, which is Super Mario Galaxy. But that won't be happening until later on, until 2 months time at this point. So anyways, let's go in and... oh jeez, those enemies can really get on my nerves at points, but thankfully we can just ignore him from now, and let's just head on to the farm heights. So oh yeah, every once in a while though is the fact that we need able to collect certain amount of things during the overworld and stuff like that, similar to the previous games, so you probably expect it at this point. However though, that just like it evolves of how it does it on occasional Banjo-Kazooie, the first game, as well as the majority of the time in Banjo-Tooie, I think every once in a while though, there might be some boss fights every once in a while. But the biggest disappointing about this is, unlike the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, that is the fact that, well, the majority of the boss fights, well, we'll point it out whenever we're able to actually keep on exploring around on certain worlds in this game, so, yeah, that might actually begs the question of what's gonna be up, so... anyway though, something's worth mentioning is the fact that for those of you who lived in the UK, relatively speaking, is the fact that both Monsters University, the actual film, then the actual, the Pixar film that usually exists, and the same applies to Mario and Luigi Dream Team Brothers for the 3DS in the UK version. Both of those things are recently now becoming 9 years old during that time, which it wasn't until whenever we get to 2023 that those two things are practically going to become a decade old. Until, like I said, 2023. So, that'll be interesting though, especially noticeable just trying to able to celebrate with the actual two things at once. So, but you know, you get the idea about that. So, let me know in the comments below for the question of the day. Did you guys ever experience the actual game called Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance? Because, what if I managed to able to get the game physically on the I would classify for saying back in 2017 or something, and I did have a lot of fun with it, even though it does have some issues compared to the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, because obviously we're on a different perspective, and there was no Banjo 3 until the reboot game came out, which appears to be Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, where a lot of people seem to do not really care about the forms of Nuts and Bolts because of the different direction, and of course the actual art style doesn't seem to fit, you know, kind of like how it did in the forms of how it does it on you know, for the Pac-Man series of gaming. So anyway, so let's go ahead and have a chat with these sheeps, and oh yeah, we need to get rid of this enemy first before we do anything, and that way we can able to get ourselves the next Jiggy. So that should be good to go, alright? Yeah, kind of think about it, that sheep icon almost kind of reminds me like Shaun the Sheep or something, except the fact that, well, it doesn't do any cool stealth stuff, unlike the forms of how it does it on the Shaun the Sheep TV series, which, either way though, I used to really love it though, when I was like really young and stuff like that, and of course they did actually made 2 movies of him, so at least that's pretty cool though. Oh, and also on top of all that stuff though, until 2023, of course, Chicken Run Dawn of the Nuggets will be on the case on Netflix, so yeah, multiple things I'm very excited for, so of course, the obvious one until 2023, it'll obviously be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel after all, so because of that though, because as far as what Maxi has already mentioned about this, ever since in not only Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Super Mario Sunshine game portion, but also Kirby and the Forgotten Land, that it's kind of unfortunate that particular game needs to be a little bit longer until when it gets its release, so it's like kind of similar to Toy Story 4's release date all over again, and same applies to the forms of the first game's development, so, or maybe, just maybe, Metroid Prime 4 and all that stuff, so. But anyway, enough about that specific chat right now, so either way though, let's go ahead and collect those cheeks before we're able to actually just get ourselves our next Jiggy and stuff like that, so that might be seems the case at all, so. Oh yeah, something worth mentioning is the fact that just like in Banjo-Tooie, there's no extra lives in this game, which I'm honestly felt a bit grateful because unlike the first game, that you do need able to rely on extra lives before continuing, because every time you die, not only do you lose a life, but also you lose your progress by able to actually collect all kinds of stuff, ranging from music notes, Jinjos, and all that stuff. At least specifically on the original version on the N64, and compared to the Xbox Live version, that's basically the actual the thing itself has been fixed. So anyway, so I don't think we can do anything in here because we need to learn another moveset. So because of this though, yeah, in order to able to actually get access to the boss, you notice there's actually a portal over there. And basically, in order to able to make it there, we need to activate that specific switch. But of course, we can't do that until we need to learn something. So oh boy, these segments. Honestly, out of all the actual segments in Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge, these are perhaps one of my least favorite missions. Well, specifically my least favorite types of missions, because as you can see, we need to do some bit of fishing. And basically in this one is the fact that we need to catch, let's just say, 12 sheeps. So if you do manage to accomplish that, then basically you would able to get the Jiggy, right? Well, here's the thing about this is the fact that I swear the timing on these things are so finicky. And on top of all that stuff though, it does kind of reminds me of the forms of that fishing minigame from the likes of Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Advance. So at least even then though, it just feels a bit kind of similar to each other, except the fact that, well, at the very least you can able to take control of the boat during the course of Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance. So at the very least that's that. Well, mind you, the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country came out the exact same year as this. So yeah, I get the feeling I probably will be able to mess this up. Will I? Yep, just about one sheep left. Well, thankfully though, you don't die in these segments like this, because there's an option that you can able to try again. So at the very least that's that. So, and of course, if you can't be bothered able to read the dialogue again, then basically just press the B button until you're able to, you know, keep trying and stuff like that. So at the very least you're able to actually just do that, I suppose. But yeah, that's as far as I can usually just try to able to talk about in terms of the forms of today's discussion, especially noticeable of how Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge plays out to be. I mean, sure, you start off like kind of bare bones to begin with, but until later on though that you get actually access to even more movesets, and you should feel a lot more satisfied if you manage able to rescue Kazooie later on. So, because I'm pretty sure we don't able to actually rescue Kazooie in this world until later on, like I said, because either way though, we're Scout's able to start with bare bones movesets at the moment. So that should be alright for my case, even though despite the fact that we can't do continuous talent trot and also you know, flying and all that stuff though, but that's okay, because either way though, this is just the beginning portion of the game, so that's to be expected. Although, mind you, about the fact the matter is though, is the fact that this game might actually be... Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Oh, there's another thing too, is the fact that, it's kind of annoying, where basically, if you come across into a molehill sometimes, then if I was trying to able to talk to Bullseye, to able to actually learn a new move, but for some reason, he keeps on telling me he needs to be meat in front, which I get it because the forms of the actual sprite is actually facing forward, because either way though, that's just usually how it goes, so... Oh well, no big deal, but at the very least we now learn the new move that basically this allows me to able to do some bit of roll. Mind you, we've already done rolling before, ever since in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, so at the very least that's that, so... And of course, just like it forms of how it does it in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, every once in a while we actually stumble across Mumbo Jumbo in his, well, his skull hut. And basically that we can't do anything in there at the moment until whenever we're able to not only grab another couple of jiggies, but also just, I would classify for saying the game tells me I need to deal with a boss first, so... But either way though, that's the whole entire purpose of the forms of this particular progression for, you know, this game in particular. And I just get a horrible feeling. I think I might not able to actually get out of this though, although I was able to try to figure this for myself, so Now, I do apologize if my sniffy nose is actually present on that particular sound commentary. It's mainly because about the fact that I'm just a little bit too sniffy at some points, which I honestly have to admit I do apologize. So, anyway, so how do I supposed to get out of here? Oh, wait a second. Can I usually get out of this though? Ah, I can't jump higher enough. Yeah, that's the thing about this game sometimes, that most people seem to really think that the only weakest aspect about this game though, I must admit, is the depth perception, because most of the time though, that you will able to actually not only miss certain platforms, but also, get this, is the fact that we can't able to actually just well, I don't know about you, but it gets a bit irritating until likely in the later stages. But for the most part, Cliff Farm wasn't too bad. It's just the beginning portion of the world. So, I guess that pretty much makes it obvious sense. So, there's no way I can get out. Oh jeez, what the heck am I supposed to do? Darn it, there's my first game over, so... But of course, luckily though, just like in the forms of how it does it on the previous games, that the checkpoint is already active if you somehow managed able to leave the area of the level, or anything else like that. So, unfortunately though, there's my first game over in this game, which, trust me when I say this, I will able to get a lot, I mean a lot of game overs in this game. Unlike, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, that I rarely do die occasionally. But in this game in particular though, with all the depth perception in mind, and even with the new perspective, oh god, it just gets a bit aggravating sometimes in the later stages because, well, you'll find out until whenever we get to later, so... There we go, we've now actually got another Jiggy, so we're able to obtain that. So, in this case, we're now on 7 Jiggies on this world so far. Well, technically 8 overall, so in this case, though, we can able to expect that. So, anyways, let's go and roll into this switch. It doesn't matter which angles we go to. And we're able to actually access the portal, which actually leads us to the first boss in the game. Which appears to be... Klongo? Ho ho ho, Klongo make. Grunty monstrous. I can't really pronounce that word. Chop off Grunty weedless. And whiplashes for Gruntilda if Klongo's sperm baddies make. Grunty happy Klongo show. Mrs. Bear removal formula. Next. Huh? How Bear get past Witchy? Warp and into Klongo's secret room. Klongo give Bear taste of new formula. So here's the first boss in the game, which appears to be Klongo, very similar to the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Tooie. However though, that's my only major gripe I have with this game, is that the boss fight in this game is a total joke. Even way much of a joke than the forms of how it does it in Banjo-Tooie. Because in Banjo-Tooie, it does have a lot of variety of bosses, at least depending on what world we go into. In this game, on the other hand though, we only come across into quite a few bosses, which can be ranging from Klongo, and eventually we will come across into Grunty or Gruntilda until later portion of the game, and that's pretty much about it. Mind you, because of the limitations of the Game Boy, so this means about the fact that there's no gigantic boss fights every once in a while, unlike, you know, Banjo-Kazooie for a bit, and also Banjo-Tooie, the majority of Banjo-Tooie I should say. So either way though, for the most part, Klongo in his first counterpart, he's actually really easy. Although, mind you, similar to in Banjo-Tooie, basically he activates the shield for a bit, but then as soon as the actual shield's gone worn off, basically it's your chance to able to attack him. Like, I think you can only do a roll technique for now, so at the very least, as soon as when the shield is down, and then you hit him 3 times, and there he goes. Ugh, Klongo has had enough for you, or for now anyway, so ready to make the bear's skin rug. Okay, I have no idea what's up with that. And he managed to get away like that. And of course, in addition to able to get ourselves our next Jiggy, but also we got ourselves the returning Mumbo token, which basically it functions kind of like the same thing as in, you know, Banjo-Kazooie, where basically if you grab the Mumbo token, This means, yes, transformations are returning for the forms of this game. However, though, there's only like 5 of them. Like, although, mind you, there's only like 4 transformations in the whole entire game, mainly because of the limitations of the Game Boy, or the Game Boy Advance, I should say. So in this case, though, let's head into Mumbo's hut. Banjo, have new trident for... yeah, you probably get the idea. I do apologize if my commentary is a little bit iffy at points. That's only mainly because I was a little bit slightly tired. But anyway, let's go and use our Mumbo token, and at the moment we can only able to transform into... oh, what's this right here? I can able to actually choose whatever transformations I want to go for. That's pretty swell, I have to say. Mind you, unlike Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, depending on what world you go into, you only have to go for one specific transformation in one of those worlds. So, anyway, so we stumbled across our first transformation in this game, which appears to be a mouse. And basically, what you can do with this transformation is that you can able to actually go through small holes that you could not normally do from earlier ago. So at the very least, that's that. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, I don't think we can able to attack with anything, apart from the fact that you can able to jump. And of course, every once in a while, though, that if we come across into something, like either switches or something, then basically we need to able to take a bite of that particular string and stuff like that. So, anyways, there's the 5th and final Jinjo in, well, Cliff Farm, and if you manage to able to grab all 5 of those Jinjos in each world, very similar to the forms of how it does it on, you know what I mean, Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that, basically you get yourselves a Jiggy, so, but you have to make your way there to the forms of the oracles of, Jinjo statues before you're able to get that, Jiggy this time around, because I know for the fact that, oh wow, that particular mouse transformation automatically dies if I'm in water, so I have no idea why I bring that up right there, because unlike Tom and Jerry, that Jerry did manage to become the only one survives underwater, which I know for a fact that was just a cartoon, of course. Anyway, so now we actually got ourselves all of these extra honeycomb pieces, so that way we're able to be good to go. Well, not for a little while, because either way, just like Banjo-Tooie, we need to collect a certain amount of those honeycomb pieces before you're able to actually increase your health bar. So, at the very least, that's that. And every once in a while, that's as you can tell, we actually collect all 100 of those music notes, and every time you do that, then Bullseye tells you that, congratulations, you've actually collected all 100 of those music notes. Kind of like bottles and jam jars from both Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie respectively, so... Anyways, I think we're pretty much done in here, apart from the fact that we only got 1 Jiggy left. Although before we do with all that stuff though, is the fact that we need to head over back onto Mumbo Jumbo's hut for now on, and transform back into the bear form of Banjo, so at the very least we can able to actually now able to leave the level. Well, here's the thing about this is that if you're still in the transformation, unlike the forms of how it does it on the previous games, that normally in the previous games, that if you leave the world in a further away distance, at the very least you can able to automatically transform into the actual normal form again, assuming if the actual the text bubble either Humba Wumba from Banjo-Tooie, as well as the forms of the first game's Mumbo Jumbo, and basically that tells you that the magic itself is getting a bit weak. So as a result though, yeah, unfortunately in this game though, is the fact that you cannot do that, because if you're about to leave the world, then basically though, there's the fact that the actual cross symbol actually shows up, which means we have pretty much warped automatically onto, well, Mumbo Jumbo's hut, which... I've no idea why they're going for that though, but either way though, it's just a bit of a questionable choice I think, so... Anyway, so now we actually collected everything in Cliff Farm, so in this case, that after we're done with all that stuff though, the actual Oracle of Jinjo just trying to tell us what the next world is going to be. So in this case, the next world we're going to be hop into, it was like Beagle Beach, according to what he says anyway, so... Yeah, bit of a short world, despite the fact that our video length was actually a bit long, so as a result I don't mind about it too much. So anyways, let's talk to Jiggy Wiggy, and basically we now need to able to go into this altar again, and able to actually unlock the next world. I think most of those worlds in this game is going to go by far as the shortest of the bunch, because as far as I'm aware, due to the forms of the handheld's limitations, and of course, that unlike Banjo-Tooie, that normally we divide it into 2 parts in certain worlds. In this game though, we can only just simply do 1 world per video, I'm presuming so anyway, so now we've actually activated the actual altar, and that way we can now able to actually access to the next world, which takes place somewhere on the left side of the forms of Spiral Mountain. So, and since that we can now able to actually climb onto some things, in this case like vines or something, so at the very least we can now able to actually explore almost every single portions of Spiral Mountain as it is. So I guess that's that, I suppose. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much as far as I can say about this, basically. So anyway, so let's go ahead and keep on rolling, and hopefully we're able to climb up, just like so. Grab some more musical notes here and there, and cross the bridge as we go along, and we meet our way to the second world, which is Beagle Beach. I think that's what the world itself is called anyway. So yeah, you probably expect it at this point, so even then though, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. So, jeez, I forgot about the depth perception right there. I almost first thought it was a wall, but it wasn't. So anyway, so I think suffice to say, we'll go ahead and end things off here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge. That is the fact that we'll hit on to the forms of the second world in this game, known as Beagle Beach, and hopefully we'll rescue Kazooie in the process. I'm hoping anyway. So I'll see you guys on Thursday. Later, fellas.